require like a 4-foot dock for commercial trucks, but it does have a trash compactor and the required recycling area kind of hidden back here. Folks at Center County Planning have reviewed this for that. As you can see, again, the ADA parking would be right here. The parking area, of course, is sized to handle both the clients, the users, meaning the providers, and the patients in the building. It meets the township requirements for this size of building. The parking does, again, these last 3 tiers are actually stepped down. There's some grading. There would be some steps in these areas here to try and, again, work in towards the topography of the site, so that there's some relief from this big kind of sea of parking, as it were. It steps down as you head towards the back as this goes downhill. You can see on this plan here that we have considered the ability to get both tractor trailers around the circle and articulated catabus can get around the circle. Those both will be able to make full navigation through the site. So our grading plan here, now we've kind of highlighted that lot 3 that was asked about area, that triangular shape. These are 3 basins right here. They're for stormwater management. So any runoff that's captured from this proposed roadway gets into these basins. Runoff that's captured from this proposed roadway, this development, gets into the basins. The basins are also sized to allow for future development on this area right here, which is the future town center, so that if the next pieces of development come in or in this area, those basins don't have to be resized. We get to the utility plan, you'll be able to see that we've accounted for them for in the future. So this plan also shows, this is the top leg of the traffic circle. So if you can kind of take this area here and plug it right on top here, it proposes a connection to the Bellefonte Central Rail Trail. So the township, and Doug, you can correct me if I'm wrong, owns and or maintains the Bellefonte Central Rail Trail at this point. And it has been requested that there be a connection to that point, so anybody that comes up Masters Boulevard can access the rail trail, or vice versa at this point.
Technically, we have an easement on, we're the owners of an easement over that trail. And we do maintain it, yes.
Okay. So this plan here kind of shows some of the utilities. There is a culvert that needs to go in over the water course that comes through the property at this point right here. You can see some of the piping. I'll call these typical drainage pipes, inlets, catch basins, and pipes that get into the basins. Existing water is at this point right here. Existing sewers at this point right here. Both will tie in and come up Masters Boulevard to serve the entire project. Both the sewer authority and the water authority are aware of the project. They understand what it's going to take to make this happen as far as service. And I would say that the water line that's going in here is actually a 16-inch water line. That's a pretty big water line. But what's happening is the owners of the property are obligated to replace a water line that crosses, and I don't really have it shown here, but it kind of crosses cross country below the project the whole way across here to an existing tank that's on the property. So the water line will come up Masters Boulevard, will come down Royal Queens Main, and then it will go kind of out through the forested area right here. And it continues along here and ties into existing line right here. It makes this line right here obsolete. Now, where we have laid or proposed to lay this water line is a future road back to that master plan that Nicole showed us earlier. That water line will go into that piece right there. So we're jumping down to Toftrys Avenue. So we're back to the intersection here that will be signalized. The traffic impact study that we have done shows a right turn lane off of Tofttrees Avenue onto Masters Boulevard, a left turn lane onto Waddle Road. Existing gas line is up here near the driveway for Tofttrees Resort. Gas line will have to come down Tofttrees and up Masters Boulevard to serve the project. Here you can see the proposed street trees that would be on Masters Boulevard. And then the landscaping and the street trees for Royal Queens, Maine and Masters Boulevard. Township has requirements for headlight screening around the project, and then around the perimeter of the property, there will be trees that get added here, as you can see. I'm currently in conversation with township staff. They've made some comments about some landscaping that needs to be possibly added in these islands here. So of course, we'll get in there what needs to go in. As far as the building itself is concerned, for lighting, we did a lighting plan, meets township standards for LED lights, everything, safety, security, for everybody that's working and or patient at the facility can get in and out, they can see. So this is a plan for operational hours. Township requires a 75% lighting reduction plan for non-office hours. My understanding is the building essentially will be open 9 to 5. Tom can comment on that. It's not a 24-hour facility, so we do have a reduction plan as far as the lighting is concerned.
Yeah, Tony, I would just confirm what you just said.
So I know there's a lot of questions on this. That's the 10-minute review of the site, both the overall site and the proposed medical office building. I'm going to say it might serve us to get into questions. Let's see what folks want to know about, and we'll try and get you answers.
Thank you, Tony. Planning Commission. Who has a question?
Tony, can you take the plans down so we can see the folks?
Oh, yeah,
Stop sharing. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Sharon, go ahead with your question.
With the roadway and the circle, I know you said you could get like semis and the buses that have the little bendy things in them around them. But
Yes.
what about emergency vehicles like that need to be screaming down there, like fire engines?
If we can get the tractor trailers and buses around there, we can get anything that Alpha has around there.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll actually second that as, yeah, we don't have anything bigger than a semi tractor trailer. We can get anything around that. Plus, if most traffic circles in our area, if I'm not mistaken, Doug, tend to have a flat so we can go up and over them, and we've hit them going straight on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then another question I had, when you were talking about the water lines going underneath the roads,
Yes.
it just seems to me, would it make more sense to have the water line going like next to the road so that every time there's an issue with either having to do repairs or having to change things, you're not digging up the road, and that is going to be like the main thoroughfare?
So that's a great question, and I'm saying that because you picked up on the fact that I said under the road. The water line is actually about 2 feet behind the curb coming up the up both roads, so it will be off of the roadway area.
Okay.
There was some back and forth with the water authority where they wanted the water line, because there is potential for this road to get expanded widthwise. And do they want it another 12 feet off the curb, which puts it way back? And they said, no, they would like it to be right where it's at. If it ends up being under the road in the future, they're fine with that. So that conversation has been had.
Okay.
Mr. Payne, take it away.
Thank you. Question on, I guess it relates to the golf course, but the Alto lane, or whatever it is, going up to golf course maintenance. Is the golf course maintenance going to be moved, or how are they going to get access back to those buildings?
So we're working with the owners of the property on that right now. There are a couple existing buildings back in here that will have to be relocated. Most of those are sheds. This is a larger building right here, and then there's a larger one right back up here. And we are, I'm going to say, Mr. Poole and I are working to figure out the best way to approach the golf course, and Mr. Poole's part of that team there too, about where to put the maintenance, so that it's not too far away, so that it is accessible. And that's in process right now.
Thank you.
Other planning commission questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Alan, Rich raised his hand first, so Rich, take it away. Alan, then we'll get to you. Go ahead, Rich.
I'm gonna let her go first. Ellen, go ahead.
How cordial. Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you. One question I had, and it's more for maybe Bob and probably Doug. Just I love the rendering, it's gorgeous, but I'm wondering about the comments of architectural consistency that was made about the town center in general. If we kick off the town center with this facility, then are we defaulting to this architectural style? And is that, kind of what we know the community wants, I guess?
I'm going to say, no, you're not committing to it. I would say, yeah, we want to see what comes next and see how it fits, but no, this does not set a pure precedent.
Okay.
Ellen, just to add on to that, the building that's going in, it's a fairly good size. Probably the balance of the town center will be more probably smaller type buildings where you'll get some different type of architecture. And when Doug said back when, the reason why we really did not know exactly what it should be, and the township and ourselves wanted the flexibility, is you can see Top Trees has been there a long time. This is our first opportunity to take advantage of the possibility of developing it. And what's happened, even over a short period of time, things change, and we have to be adaptable, because we can't force something on somebody. They have to want to be there for the right reason. So we do care about a kind of a common theme at the same time, and we want to be attractive, obviously, because it's in our best interest. The more attractive we can make this development, and you can see that's what we're working on Patton Crossing, the same way with the walls, the light, the sign over there, is that the more attractive we can make it, actually the more people will attract to want to be there. I've had multiple calls already just knowing that the hospital is going to be there, because it provides great jobs. It's our community. So it's a really good question, and we're working on that. But I wouldn't want with Tom to be, first thing, if you look at it, has a lot of glass, which you would want in a medical, because you want brightness and people to feel good about coming in there. So I think Doug summed it up. We probably, as we get more into the internal part of it, we'll start to look maybe what it should look like. It's a really good question, because we've and that's why we left it somewhat vague, so we had that flexibility.
Okay. Another question is the parking lot. And when I initially looked at it, it just looks massive. I mean, it's a huge footprint, and I guess a couple thoughts came to my mind right away. Do we need it? Do we need that much space for parking? Especially if our plan is to encourage walkability and bikeability, and I'm hopeful that we will have our internal multi-use paths and trails and sidewalks and all those things built out when this building comes to fruition. So that just struck me as a really big footprint. And is there any way, if that amount of parking is necessary, is there any way to
put it underground or have a building that's smaller, or it just seems massive to me.
Yeah, we're always concerned that we have the right amount of parking. We have standards that dictate, how much parking you need for medical office buildings, and they've satisfied that. One thing, despite the fact that we're trying to make the area around here walkable and bikeable, this building particularly is going to have a very large regional draw. So, we are a suburban community in a rural area in the center of a big state. So it's quite likely that most people are going to drive here. We really don't have the option to dictate how they do the parking. If you look around Patton Township, other than perhaps something in Patton Crossing in the future, everything else is surface parking. So from that aspect of being a suburban community, we're probably going to get surface parking. If the medical center thought that there was some need to maybe delay development of some of the parking, we'd be more than happy to have that discussion with them. One thing we've done on a lot of other sites where we have some questions about the amount of parking is have them grade the areas out, but don't pave them up front, but reserve those areas for additional parking so that they can be used in the future. And if for some reason they don't need them in the future, then they can redirect those to some other use. But that's a conversation we're more than happy to have with them.
Are the spots available for when that commercial area that you talked about is built out? Are they available for that, or is it only for the facility?
That would be all for, that would all be for Mount Nittany. And I think it probably, Doug's right. I'm assuming that Mount Nittany is going to look at their parking requirements in relation to the amount of people working there versus the trips that they'll get there. Example, when we did the Home Depot, Doug, you remember there was actually a larger requirement of parking spaces. It was looked and determined that the amount, it works out well, obviously, the amount of spaces actually needed would not be as great in the township. Allowed us to actually put less in because no one wants tons of parking. But on that facility there, that would be Mount Nittany's only.
I would say too that that's not to rule out the fact that in the future, if there was, commercial development adjacent to this, and sometimes we get where commercial development, their parking needs don't jive with an adjacent parking needs as far as timing. Office building that's during the day. If you get a commercial development in here, just for an example, a restaurant where the needs are in the evening, there might be an opportunity to do some sharing in the future, but we can't guarantee that at this point. So but I'm certain we'd look at it.
I have other questions, but I don't want to dominate.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Another question has to do, actually, it was nice that Tom mentioned the making a place that's really beautiful and appreciated by your staff and by patients. And I wondered about, is there, walkability and just being able to sit outside and have your lunch. And it just, again, there's the massive parking lot and there's the lawn and it doesn't look welcoming in terms of, I've seen some of these other facilities and you just drive up, drop your person off and flee away as quickly as possible. Right. And I would love to see something more, open to people enjoying themselves, walking it on their breaks, sitting and having their lunch.
Yeah. No, that's a great comment. And that certainly is our desire as we execute this and build this out to create those kinds of spaces, just the ability even to have, access to the rail trail or something like that, where somebody could take a walk during their lunch break or just clear their head a little bit. I mean, that's very much a part of the vision here. I think we bought into the overall evolution of this in a way that it does create opportunities for, getting out and enjoying the environment. And I'd say, Ellen, that's very consistent with our vision and what we think contributes to a holistic, approach to taking care of ourselves and each other. So
it's evolutionary in your
yeah.
opinion.
And it creates the opportunity to do that. I mean, this kind of a property really gives you the opportunity to do those things and to develop that over time for sure.
Very good. Ellen, any other questions before we proceed with Rich? And then Bill, I see you also have your hand up. Go ahead, Ellen. Anything else?
Well, my only other question, well, I have lots of other questions, but one big one is about the energy usage of the building. Are we building this building to be net zero ready? That was one of the ideas set forth in our climate adaptation and action plan.
Yeah, well, Ellen, we are currently really finalizing the designs, all of the systems, and we are certainly doing that with a view towards being environmentally responsible, environmentally accountable. So, we are absolutely working through those as we finalize the construction aspects of the building.
Okay. I'll defer now.
Alan, thank you for your question. Rich, you're up next.
Ellen, when we get into the discussion items, we're going to touch back on that potential energy issue with one of these discussion items that's on the list.
Yeah, Ellen, this is the tip of the iceberg. Go ahead, Rich.
Okay.
So I just want to ask 2 or 3 questions that I had. So the first of which is, we said that the timeline was 100 years for the full development of this. So what's the timeline of the Mount Nittany office building? That's my first question. And then my second question is while I fully understand that the crux of the traffic will be coming off the highway, I know that in the past we've had discussions on Tofttrees Avenue traffic in the specific area to where we actually have another development plan later on in our agenda. So I was just curious if, even though I fully realize that a lot of the traffic will be drawn off the highway, I just wanted to know if anything along Tofttrees Avenue going down to Fox Hollow has been taken a look at. And the third thing I just wanted to say is I'm in full agreement with Tom Charles, is that I have people that I went to college with and they want to come to this area to work for the hospital. And I feel that this building will assist in drawing more highly qualified individuals to this area. So those are my comments, and I'll let you answer those. Thank you.
Doug, do you want to talk about Tofttrees at all? Or you want me to?
Well, let's let Tom answer the timing issue first
Okay.
on development of the building.
Oh, we're ready to get going tomorrow, pending how the process goes with the township. But, if assuming the way this moves through, we would anticipate being able to be done by the end of 2023. And so, as I said earlier, we already feel like we're 2 years behind where we want to be because of the delay of the pandemic. So we're ready to move and ready to get going quite expeditiously once we have the approval to do that.
Alex, do you want to talk about the traffic, or you want me to take it? Or?
We can talk about it.
Okay. The traffic on Tofttrees is one of the things that we're still talking to the developers about, and make sure that we all have the same answers to that. So their study was pushing a lot more traffic down Tofttrees than 2 previous studies that the township had really done. So we're trying to get all the studies to line up. we think we're okay. We've also, one of the studies we did do was we looked at the Toff Trees corridor in total and had a consultant over the last couple of years do some concept planning, some preliminary engineering, and see what we need on Toff Trees, you know, for the next 10 to 15 years. And we pretty confident we're okay with a single lane of traffic in each direction. We know we'll probably need a left turn lane in and out at the resort and also at Cricklewood, which is what we have. So what, like I said, there's still some concerns. We're trying to get closer to answers that everybody feels comfortable with, and we'll report that back at the next meeting.
Very good. Rich, any other questions before we proceed to Bill?
No, I'm good. I just want to ensure that you have the golf course staff building in a good location so that I have nice fast greens to putt on. That's my closing statement.
That's
Go
Bob's
ahead,
responsibility.
Bill, take it away.
Thanks, Rick.
So I heard in the presentation that that the engineer talked about the lights dimming when the offices were closed. Would you mind speaking a little bit more about what other aspects you're doing to reduce light pollution as a whole for not only this, but as you see going forward? And Bob, if you want to jump in on this one as well, I think my pet peeve has always been, what are we going to do about light pollution, but not so much as not have light, you know, because we can't have no light when on, especially somebody going to a medical office. But I would like to know, as a whole, what are we going to do to mitigate and reduce light pollution as much as possible? Because it's going to be a large development area up there, and right now it's all forest, so it's not emitting any light. If anything, it's taking some away. But so if you want to touch on that, please.
Yeah, so one of the things we could do is look at using probably a few more lights, and with less intensity. We bring the height of the lights down a little bit. We shield the lights so that they're very, lighting is a little more sophisticated now than it used to be 20 years ago, as far as how you can direct the lights. For me to say that we're using LED lights, that's history at this point. Everybody does that, but it does work better because they do throw more light with less energy usage. As far as light pollution, also what we would propose to do, probably for some of the like walking paths through the development, would be to use I'll call them PED poles, which they're only 3 or 4 feet high, just specifically to light the the walkways, as opposed to trying to put big huge lights up that light large areas. So those are a couple of the strategies that we have in place right now. But we can certainly investigate more options as far as reducing light pollution, see what the light companies have to offer, and what the because again, a lot of it has to do with new technology and what they can do as far as where the light's thrown and what the intensity is of what is needed to, we got that balance between safety, walker friendly, and, not lighting up the night sky. So
I was going to say, Bill, there's a trade-off between safety and the lighting. And so I'm sure, Tom, within the structure they're doing, I know ourselves, one is we have to meet certain lighting requirements of the township. But on top of that, we'll do an analysis, because we realize when that development is done, it's going to be a pretty good sized development. And what we need to do is to really talk to someone who's smarter than we are on lighting to try to make that happen. But that's our intent, because as you know, it's nice to walk on a kind of a sidewalk where you have a nice light, but you don't want to make it too dark either, because then it creates other issues. And so we'll definitely look at that. It's a good question.
Bill, any other questions before we proceed to Doug? Bill, thanks for your questions. Doug, take it away.
Bill might have more, but let me just, on the lighting issue, we do require that all lighting installed on the site have what we call cutoff fixtures. So all the light has to be cast down. So they're constructed in such a way that none of the light escapes sideways or upward. So all the light, and Tony's right, the LED, especially with the new LED lights, they're very good at putting the light where you really want it. They can move those little lights around in the fixtures pretty, the manufacturers, and get it really to the point where it's good. But the only question that might come up later on is what the medical center intends to do with lighting the building itself. So if they're going to uplight it, we'll work with them closely to make sure they aren't overlighting it, and make sure if they are uplighting the building for, because it's going to be a nice building, and they probably want to show it off a little bit. Make sure that they angle those lights so that, the light ends up on the building and not into the night sky.
Very good. Planning Commission, I've got a couple questions, but is there anyone that has any other questions? Sharon, take it away. Go ahead. You're muted.
All right. I had some of the same observations that Ellen had about the size of the parking lot. It does seem like a sea of parking. And I do get that being tiered, it will be a little less obvious maybe, but what about doing something like a parking structure like what they have on Abigail Lane at the Geisinger facility, where they have, you get all the parking in, but you're only, it doesn't look, well, I guess it's vertical, so that there's that thing, but they have it set behind the building. I don't know if the topography of the land where we're looking at would allow for something like that, but you would get all the parking spots you need, and you would have less asphalt in general for, so you'd have more ground being able to absorb rainwater, things like that. And I think it would be, it might be more attractive.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, good. Good, Tom. Well, part of it, when Doug said structured parking, sometimes it's inconvenient to the people. Most people really like surface parking. There's also it's basically about 8 to 9 times more expensive for structured parking than it is for surface parking. And then also you have the long-term maintenance. As you can see downtown, they're already close to having to replace some of their structured parking because of the upkeep and the cost to maintain it. That's from the cost side, Tom. I don't know, but I also too, I know if I can, I like to pull up and do surface parking just as a person versus going up maybe 3, 4, 5 floors and then have to take an elevator down, because in most cases, either that or you have to walk. And so it becomes, especially the medical side, becomes somewhat inconvenient. But Tom, you might have more of an answer on that.
Yeah, no, Sharon, it's a great question. I would say at this point, we've not presented a plan that includes structured parking for many of the reasons that Bob just talked about. And so, we do have some structured parking, as at the hospital. We have a lot of surface parking at the hospital. It has, in our experience, been a little bit of a mixed bag in terms of people's preference for those things. So it's a good question. Doug mentioned earlier, perhaps the ability to work on something that allows us to phase that in over time. We are very cognizant of the, impervious coverage and certainly the distance that people have to travel from their parking space to the front door. But no, right, to directly answer your question, right now at this point, we have not contemplated, initiating this with a structured deck.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question a comment. So I feel like we're a little bit spoiled with Patton Crossing from the standpoint of the water retention areas were multifaceted, and also were able to have, the concept there just to be able to have a playground. So knowing that we have that the future here is to have significant housing behind it. Was there any thought put into the fact that maybe the water retention, if sloped correctly, could be multifaceted and also serve as a soccer field, you know, just a place to play? And that does go kind of hand in hand with the medical facility closing at 5, and there you've got a big parking lot. It might lend itself well to be able to use the water retention as a place to play. Any thoughts on that?
Yes. I think we would discourage that in these basins. These are going to be kind of utilitarian based on the size and the amount of water that's going to get into them. I would say also that access to the basins is going to be pretty tough, as far as where you can put folks and say, hey, here's where you park, or here's where you can walk and get into these things. We had a little more flexibility at Patton Crossing. There was a little less relief out there. But what I would say is what this does is it does free up other open space areas further into the development, because we're getting a lot of future development stormwater accounted for right here. So there's definitely some economy of scale when you do that. And we're going to take advantage of that when we get to other open space areas in the development. Plus, these are not close to any residential areas. The residential areas are in the back a little bit, so we'll consider that in the back, Brian.
Well, it is in the back, but the way it's pitched, all the traffic is driving by this area.
There's a lot of, that's pretty steep where these basins are going to be.
I thought so.
Yeah, they're really kind of on the side of a hill. So
yeah.
Brian, your thought,
Understood.
Brian, your thought is really good. This area right there is not conducive to it. But you're right. The reason Patton Crossing is, first thing, I like taking stormwater possibilities and use a Greenleaf Manor. That we did Greenleaf Manor. As you know, over what's the park over there? It's a big detention basin in
Landings.
The landings, so it's a really good idea, and I like where you can utilize something that's going to really be sitting there with grass on it, and you structure it a little bit different. These here are a little steep and a little difficult to make that happen, but ideally, wherever you can do that, it's a great idea.
Understood. Well, everybody, I think that was, we have another question. I see a hand up. I don't see the user's name, but the initial is ANC 100. Please proceed.
Oh, no, that hand is not up.
Okay, very good. Any more? I think we have talked about this in length. Are we ready to move on to the next part of the presentation? Tony, are you talking about the houses as well?
no, the traffic study included those additional uses for the express purpose of getting enough traffic, planned traffic on Masters Boulevard, so we can make sure that a signal was required there, because one of the things we wanted to do in terms of traffic was only change that intersection once. So we're going from the condition it is today to a signalized condition. So the other development that I talked about, that was only included in the traffic study for that purpose. So
very good, thank you.
So that,
ahead,
yeah,
Jim,
everything on the development today is just the medical office building that we're talking about.
Very good. Jim, proceed.
That's another quick question. As far as how much overall earth moving are you going to be doing beyond where the hospital is in the stormwater basins?
So there will be some earth moving involved with the roadway installation. There will be some road earthwork involved with the installation of the water line. I'm not sure how to quantify your question of how much.
I think you're not going outside the footprint really of this land development plan to either borrow or waste, right?
No, that's correct. That's correct. Yes.
I was just curious if you were gonna do any other earth moving like towards the town center on the other side of the Queens Road.
The extent of the earth moving is what is shown on the plan. So there is a little bit of cut involved on the other side of Royal Queens Main, but it does not chase up that hill. There's no borrow from that area. So that is it.
Thank you.
Very good. Any more discussion? If not, we'll proceed to the next item. We're not making any motions this evening. So anything else we want to talk about?
Brian? Oh, sorry, Doug. I was
Go
just
ahead,
going
Nicole.
to circle back to the rest of the discussion items in the agenda just to make sure I think we've talked about several of them, but before we completely move away, maybe we should revisit and make sure that we got those. And I'm not sure what you were going to say, Doug.
No, that was what I was going to say.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Here I can
feel like
bring,
we danced around a lot of it.
yeah, let me get that back up.
Go ahead, Nicole.
All right, so Alex, I'm not sure, do you want, here's the part from the A portion of the conversation. Not sure if there's anything in here you want to specifically call
What?
attention. Or Doug.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, we were just gonna, I think between Tony and I, talk about, or whoever wants to jump in, these discussion items. The first one regarding beneficial reuse, just a high level view of that is anything that goes down the drain goes to UAJA, gets treated, and then goes into Spring Creek, or it can be reused again. So the intent of this is to perhaps to have a joint effort for UAJA to send a reuse line into Top Trees West. Because it's such a large area, UAJA is interested in that. So we met with them last month to talk about this, and they are going to get together some cost and benefit data to get to the developer to see if they would be interested in pursuing this.
Yeah, if I can, one of the major, well, in my mind, one of the major uses of this beneficial reuse water is actually for heating and cooling of buildings. It acts just like a geothermal well. It's you can use it to heat or cool a building depending on the season. There's virtually very little cost for the use of it from the building owner. So, and that's one of the major things. And as Alex said, UAJ is working on some estimates for, and I don't know if we really, this medical office building is 125,000 square feet. So if you put it all on one level, it's about the size of Walmart. So it's a very big building. So UAJ is working up some numbers to, illustrate for the building owner what they might be able to save if they use this water for heating and cooling. It can also be used for lots of other uses. Irrigation is a big one. If people want to use it for irrigation, you can use it for flushing toilets and other what we call non-potable uses. You can't run it to a sink, but you can run it to a commode. You can use it to wash laundry. It's very good for washing laundry. So there's a lot of uses for it. As Alex said, when we send waste down the public sewer lines, it all goes to the UAJ plant. Now they can only discharge a certain amount to Spring Creek every day. So when we go over that, then they have to treat the rest of it to a higher level, which is the reuse level. We won't go into details about how clean this water is, but it's cleaner than most water you'll come into contact with. And then it can be used for reuse, as we said. So we're still working on having that discussion. The developers haven't said no, but there's probably going to be some give and take here as we continue these conversations over the next few weeks.
You
Any
have anything to
questions?
add, Tony?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Sharon?
Yeah, when you were talking about water, it brought up a question I had that I had forgotten. With this master plan, even though it's going to be, over many years, what is our water capacity with the wells that we have? Do we have plans to drill more wells, or what's our water, the water that we have available for drinking
we
water,
just-
for everything else.
We just happen to have a local expert on with us. I don't know if he's listening at the moment. Brian Heiser from State College Borough Water Authority. In the short term, we have plenty of water, Sharon. If Brian wants to talk about long-term plans. Hi there, Brian.
Hi, Doug. How are you this evening?
We're good. Sharon asked about, looking at this long-term 50 to 100 years of Toft Trees West build out. What's the plan for State College Borough Water Authority and in the long future? How are we capacity wise?
So I'll just make 2 points to that. First of all, the center region uses an average of approximately 4 to 4.5 million gallons a day. We have in reserves 25 million plus a day. So we're nowhere near any type of capacity limit with the wells that we currently have developed. I think what's also very important to point out is that from 2000 to the present, while the center region has continually grown at a steady rate, we are using less water today than we did in 2000. So that's my 2 points for now. I think it's a very good question that she asked. However, I believe we are well positioned for, as you've referred throughout the meeting, Doug, with this particular project, 100-year, possibly 100-year build out. I think we are very well positioned to accommodate that.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
News are all of our friends to the West Coast should be green with envy.
Yeah, that right.
Go ahead, Alan.
Oh, I just said, that's great, the reuse plan. I was excited about that. It was
Very
a
good.
thumbs up.
Very good. Go ahead, Nicole, if you'll continue on our agenda.
We're Alex.
Yeah,
Or
so
Alex?
the second item for discussion is the location of the new gas line along Toft Trees Avenue. I don't know, some of you weren't on the planning commission a few years ago, but we worked with Navarro and Wright to develop a new Toft Trees corridor plan. And the position of the gas line as proposed on this plan might be in conflict with some of the infrastructure we want to put into place. So we're asking the developer to maybe move it further outside of the roadway footprint or potentially put it entirely onto private property. So that's something we're still in discussion with the developer.
I do have a question on this one.
Proceed.
Have we given any thought at all to not having a gas line? I mean, to actually, thinking about where we're going to be in 30 or 40 years and not putting a gas line in?
No, we're really not anywhere near that conversation yet, Ellen. At this point, it's if building owners, property owners want to use gas for heat, we're not going to restrict that at this point.
We're not in a position to, that's not our role in terms of, they can choose to do what is their rights, I guess, within that property.
Yeah.
And
I'll just. Was it considered? Was it
Yeah.
considered at all?
Yeah, Ellen, I'll just say, from terms of if the gas company wants to run a gas line down a township right away, they have the Pennsylvania Utility Commission has given them the right to do that. We can't tell them no, not to run a gas line down. So this might be a subject for discussion in other states and other areas, but it's really not a discussion that's ongoing in Pennsylvania anywhere that I'm aware of.
Alex, please proceed.
Can I put your hand down, Ellen?
Oh, sure.
Okay. The third item is the replacement of the culvert under Top Trees Avenue. The developer is currently proposing to extend the existing culvert. Actually, another part of the Top Trees corridor plan that was done 2 years ago was an hydraulic study for the current culvert, and it's undersized and it needs replaced. So instead of extending the existing culvert, we would like to work with the developer to replace that culvert that's currently under Top Trees Avenue. So that's what discussion item 3 is about. If anyone has any questions.
Alex, I don't have any questions on that, but what made me think of that is, right now we have a crossing for all the golf carts that are the golfers. That becomes more problematic as this region continues to get developed.
That's a great question, Brian. Actually, we are working to address that. That is something not as a part of this plan, but we are working to address that golf cart crossing.
Yeah.
And potentially combining it with the Bellefonte Central Rail Trail crossing uphill.
I mean, that the golfers there, that even the visibility, I don't even know is all that great. So
yeah,
we, it will continue to be more of a problem. Just we all need to, obviously, it sounds like you're aware of that. So good.
Yeah, no, we agree with that, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah.
So moving on to item 4, Tony, you can stop anytime if you want to say anything or anybody. Number 4 is lane widths on Masters Boulevard. Do you mind if I bring up the plan, Nicole? Maybe it'd be better to show the plan. Okay. So the lane widths on Masters Boulevard, I'm going to skip ahead. Sorry for all the scrolling. So this is what we call cross section of the roadway, and the lane widths that were proposed on this plan are 12 foot. We asked the developer to consider 14-foot lanes, and currently working with Tony on that. So we're still working through that detail.
Yeah,
So
we'll find a way to make that happen. Yeah.
and
Well,
just to go ahead,
But
Brian.
guys, I don't even know, what if we want the concept of let's approve what's in front of us, then, it sounds like, Tony, you're not objecting to make it wider. But if, just obviously have an awareness that we got a ton of traffic in the future that is expected to be going in and out of this development. So I can't say that anything we're just talking about is woefully sufficient. I don't know. That's all. Please proceed.
Okay, does anyone else have any other comments on this item? Okay. Moving on to roundabout design. Actually, Tony went into a lot of detail about that already. I think we can move on from that discussion unless anyone has any questions about the roundabout. Okay, and then the last thing, number 6, as we've already also stated, the traffic impact study that was completed, like Doug had stated, we need to kind of marry the 3 different studies that were already done for this corridor. So the developers team is working on updating the traffic study.
And you will have that shortly, Alex. I know that Doug Hill from Worcester, who is our traffic consultant, has incorporated the numbers and the information that was provided for the other studies into our study, and it'll be revised shortly.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. So that's all I have on the discussion items for the roadway or the township's interests.
Very good.
There are just a couple more kind of on the B part of the discussion with the medical office building that we also just wanted to point out, especially because there was some conversation earlier about the lighting plan. We did want to point out that it is important for safety and for that encouraged pedestrian and multimodal use that we have adequate lighting in the town center. And the portion that we're most concerned about, and I guess I can see if I can grab that plan sheet to show you exactly where I'm talking about. The crosswalks that we are asking for up by the roundabout, we would like to see just a little bit more lighting there. And wait, where was it? I think you guys know what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to keep clicking through the plan set. But so we are working with the developer on that, and that should we can revise. And then the final piece of that discussion is that shift in the master plan for the town center to kind of accommodate the medical facility fitting in, as I pointed out, that shifting those boundaries just a little bit, with which township staff does support doing that. So if there's anything about either one of those two things that anyone would like to discuss more, if not, I think that pretty much wraps us up for the Toft Trees West conversation for tonight.
Nicole, the only real quick comment is, developers, thank you for incorporating the bike trail. So we're appreciative that you are equally as enthusiastic about keeping that intact. So thank you very much. Nicole, if we can just make sure that with that bike trail, that if there are areas that need to be illuminated a little bit, that maybe we think about that at some point. Any more discussion before we move on to our next item?
One thing, Brian, I'd just like to say to the Planning Commission that the staff has been great working with us on this project. We know it's a big project. We know there's been some changes. And as far as conversations about what the township expectation is, what they feel that the commission and the board's expectations are, and, you know, kind of doing what's best for everybody. They've been great in getting us answers, working with us, and trying to keep this thing moving, which I know Tom really appreciates. So just wanted to let you know, we thank you for that.
Tony, it's nice to hear that. And I can say from the Planning Commission that we can see that a lot of work was put into this already. So that's, we likewise, we're appreciative of all the efforts. Before we, are we, okay, Jim, you've got a question, proceed. Oh, you're just making thumbs up, yeah. Very good.
Yep, just giving a thumbs up.
Very good. All right, are we ready to move on to item number 6? Who wants to tee us up?
I will do that. Let me get the agenda back up here.
That's an appropriate way as we define the Toft Trees area. We need to say tee us up.
All right, so this will be a little bit easier to look at than what we have been talking about so far this evening. So this is a subdivision plan. It's still in the plan community for Toft Trees, but this is asking for development of single-family residential area, which is 2 to 5 dwelling units per acre. The site size is just over 4 acres and is looking to put 18 single-family homes. And it's going to extend Dean's Way a little bit, which is a public street. We're going to have a 10-foot utility and sidewalk easement along the frontage of each of the lots. And the lots will have their own dusk till dawn lamp post in the front of the lawn, which is an illumination standard that does meet township regulations. So phases 9 and 10 were recently approved back in the spring of 2019. And they were relatively on the same scale. One was 19 single family homes, one was 17. So we have seen kind of some of these phases for the village at Penn State come in the last couple of years. So this is just another piece to be developed for those single family homes. So Mr. Frechtel is here as the engineer for this project as well. So I don't know, Tony, if you would like to add anything or show anything.
I don't think I need to show anything. I would say that this is essentially the last phase of single-family development in the village of Penn State. So, and the houses have been selling over there. The lots have been selling. So developers is looking forward to kind of maybe finish out this portion of the project. And one sort of unique item that we did incorporate into this project, it is a cul-de-sac. And the end of the cul-de-sac has because there's not a lot on it, or I would say there's a corner of a single family lot. There's an easement there for some snow storage. The new roadmaster, or director of public works, I should say, requested an opportunity to kind of get some snow off the road a little bit easier there. So we added that on there. So hopefully that makes things a little easier for the plow guys. But other than that, I'm going to say it's pretty typical of the single family subdivision in the village of Penn State.
Planning Commission, pretty straightforward. Do we have any questions, comments? My only comment on that is, I think it's acceptable to have, we got another 18 houses here. So I just can't, when I envision the Toff Trees West, I don't know how we avoid a lot of dead end streets without more roads going in and out, but that is a conversation to have at obviously a later point. In terms of what I'm seeing here, it seems perfectly fine.
Well, that was actually my only question, and it was more for the township than it was for the developer. And that's the internal pathways and access ways. It feels like you just said, actually, Brian, that there's dead ends. And if you want to go from one community to the other, you need to go back up onto Toff Trees Avenue. And if we are really focused on walkable communities, it seems like we need more internal ways to get around communities.
Tony, was there any thought into that to be able to have not a vehicular, but a pedestrian connection here?
I think way back when we did the station, which entirely surrounds this section of development, there was conversation, and it was about half and half about whether that was a good idea or not. And so we didn't. So that's kind of where that landed. I think the thought was keeping the student community and the single family community separated was a good idea. So that's what happened back then. There's kind of a fence that goes all the way around the station, which kind of surrounds this piece here. So
like a significant fence. How tall is it? It's pretty big.
I believe it's 8 feet.
It's
8
all
feet.
right.
Yeah.
Kind of unattractive too.
Yeah.
I actually thought that was the responsibility of the planned community. In other words, if you're going to have a planned community, you would think, but anyway, it's, I guess, not for this discussion.
Well, Alan, I don't know. I'm appreciating your insight on that. Any other thoughts from the Planning Commission? Is it also, just for clarity, these houses are paying a condo fee to belong to the clubhouse. Is that accurate? Am I right?
Yes, it is.
So Ellen, that's a little bit, they're paying a premium to be able to have amenities that belong to this village development.
I actually live in the village, so
I
know what I pay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
inexpensive.
then I guess
Ellen, very inexpensive.
Right.
I guess I just brought that up because
well, I know that I feel like being in a planned community, part of that benefit of being part of that is being part of a bigger community. We have our small, whatever you want to call them, enclaves or
little sub-communities.
Yeah, but it does sort of take away from the objectives that I was reading in what we're calling a town center and what we're calling a planned community. There is a public benefit to being able to be part of a bigger community, I guess. I don't want to keep saying the word community, but anyway, I just didn't understand how it all worked, so I'm learning.
Well, Ellen, you're the only person on the planning commission that I clearly don't check everyone's addresses, but you've made mention that you are in that neighborhood. So, what is it that you're asking the planning commission?
Well, what I was asking is much more about the Patton Township and how an internal set of sidewalks, pathways, whatever, that could go between communities. And it sounds like that was decided against at some point.
Yeah, I think in this particular case, that's correct. Yes.
That is correct. In this case, yeah.
Doug, do you have any thoughts on this subject matter?
Well, primarily this would be a discussion more apropos for the master planning stage when we're getting down into some of the more details. There, I mean, in this whole neighborhood, there are some walk pathways that we've actually eliminated because people didn't want them because they were behind their houses or things like that. So we do various, some communities we do better than others in getting these internal walkways in. I will tell you, our primary focus is to have a paved sidewalk in front of every house. From our standpoint of watching communities evolve and grow, if you want to get people out on the street, you got to give them a sidewalk. You got to give them a safe place to walk. And we require a sidewalk along both sides of almost every street that a developer builds. So, sometimes we do a better job of getting the other connections in, sometimes not so good. I think what you're seeing here is Dean's Way was supposed to extend at one point. So part of that planning was at some point, there was a proposal to put student housing there where Dean's Way ends now. And, it was at that point, most people thought it was a better, as Tony mentioned, keeping those two communities apart was probably better for people's peace of mind than encouraging people moving back and forth between those two communities.
Doug, that was my recollection from.
Oh, no, we did it deliberately. We told them to put a fence around it.
Yeah, like
knowing that, and in the future, those are always tend to be big concerns.
Right.
When people hear student housing. So
my recollection is we had quite an audience from the Toff Trees area that seemed to have strong opinions about a fence around that development.
yeah, I don't remember the detailed conversation. I know, at least from the township's point of view, it was a requirement too.
Very good. Alan, I'm appreciating your questions. Sharon, go ahead.
Well, I would say just, as a homeowner or as a potential buyer for something like that, I think it's important to definitely keep separation from the student body. I mean, as long as everybody's got sidewalks across the front of their property, that's great. But I mean, I think you're just inviting trouble to have pathways going along behind somebody's property. It's just an invitation. For
Yep,
things to
there
happen
we go.
dark.
There it is.
When people
Okay,
have had
any
too
other
much to drink and they're not making good decisions.
Sharon, it's interesting. Even up in Canterbury Crossing, where the homes are pretty expensive there, and that comment comes up a lot of having a pathway in back of homes, because obviously it's a pathway that anybody can stand on or look at, whatever. And a lot of people, they're right. Some people don't care, and other people do care. It's kind of a split half the time, because you can't kick somebody off if it's a public pathway there, and they can just stand there and look up. And some people they don't like the idea that they want their backyard to be a backyard. Other people are okay with it. So it's really a tough situation. It's kind of a 50-50 deal.
I definitely think it's safer to not have paths going behind somebody's home. Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on Dean's Way? I seem to have lost my itinerary in this pile of paperwork. What is next?
We need a motion to approve staff's recommended approval with completion of all items noted on the comment letters.
Thank you, Doug.
Motion to approve based on Doug's statement.
Thank
So
you, Bill. Do we have a second?
everything that he wanted.
Rich is second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carried.
Hey, Brian, I'm going to hop off there. I'm going to tell the planning commission and staff, I really appreciate everything you guys do, because obviously we do a lot of development, as you know, in Patton, and we really appreciate how we've always been able to work together. So I want to say that, because it does mean a lot to us.
Thank you, Bob, and likewise.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate the good developments that come our way.
Thanks,
good.
guys. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
What is next on our agenda?
Next on your agenda is item 7, request for proposals for township traffic engineering consultant. Currently, I have a request for proposals out on the street to look for a new traffic engineer. As you may or may not know, we've been using Trans Associates for years. So we thought it was time to maybe go out and see, review proposals from other qualified consultants. So on page 10, you'll see that right now, a selection committee has been put together to include Elliot Abrams from our Board of Supervisors. And I was looking to see if I could get a member of Planning Commission to help us out with that effort. So we're looking to move this process forward next month. So if I could get a volunteer, that'd be great.
Looks like we've got a volunteer.
Bill Burnett,
Bill, are you stepping up?
Yeah, I'll step up on this one.
thanks, Bill.
No problem.
Thank you, Bill. Without hesitation. John, what's next? Oh, do we need any motion or anything on that? You don't need any motion on that, do you?
No,
Very good. Next item.
The next item is just the status report on pending items. So just to let you know, the board on January 26th, Trish and I went and talked to them about the bicycle parking regulations that we talked about last month. And they did set a public hearing for March 23rd at their meeting. And also wanted to let you guys know that it is official as of the 26th of January that Nicole Harder is the Patton Township zoning officer. And Patton Township will be looking to fill the position of Public Works Secretary.
Wonderful.
To make that known. Sign ordinance update, nothing to update. It's the same. So that's pretty much that.
Very good.
And then for reports, the Housing Task Force, oh, was there? I heard something. I wasn't sure if somebody wanted to interject. The core group that's continuing for quarterly meetings this year hasn't met yet. They'll meet in March. So, well, actually, that'll be after our March meeting. So probably won't necessarily have a ton to update on the group itself until April. And then if you don't mind, Brian, I'll just roll right into the matter of record about work session. So as you know, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about Toff Trees West this evening. So I went ahead and decided that we weren't going to want to start talking about housing issues tonight, but I did want to put together you're welcome, put together kind of an outline of how we're going to start that conversation and then where we're going to go from there. And I wanted to, again, give you the link to the report so you can be looking through that and referencing that. And that also in the appendix has all kinds of resources and previous studies done both in Center County and Center Region and different things that have been done there. So we will start kind of with the basics. So in addition, I attached a document. Those of you that have been around for a couple years, I don't really think there's a whole lot in that document that would be brand new. It's always good to have a refresher. I included some information in there about an ADU conversation, accessory dwelling unit, that we'd had at the township level in the past, because that's where we're going to kind of lead off with all of this. And I wanted to make sure that I was putting some of the resources and ideas kind of back in front of everybody. And again, for the people that are kind of brand new to talking about housing and talking about housing in Patton Township and the Center Region and Center County, give you guys some information to kind of start looking at and being able to refer to so that we kind of get a little bit of a head start, especially because, again, we didn't do a work session tonight and we're already going to be into March of 2022. I wanted to give us something to jump off from when we start talking in March. And I guess this will be my last point on this. And then if there are any questions, George Downborough brought up when we discussed the view last year and the storage maintenance shed, he had given some insight on maybe we should be looking at updating our subdivision and land development ordinance to require that sort of thing in those types of developments. So I also wanted to point out that there are some other things we can talk about that aren't necessarily from the 2021 Patton Township Housing Task Force report. And again, this is stuff that we can kind of be working through not just through 2022, but just kind of as we go. So there's not necessarily a rush to get all this done, in the next 10 months. So I think with that, I don't know if anybody has any specific questions about any of that I just sort of rolled right through, or anything that they want to say before we call it a night.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, well, actually, before, housing. I did just want to ask why we're all here. Currently, we have a distribution system with the agendas that includes the electronic email that is sent out to you, and then the personal delivery of the paper packet. So we wanted to touch base and make sure that everybody still wants to be receiving that packet, or if you don't really use the paper copy, then maybe that can be something that we don't deliver to you. If that makes sense. So I didn't know if we could take a quick poll to see how many people actually use the paper that is delivered to them.
I use the paper because my
I
reading
love the
is
paper.
strong enough.
I love the paper. I'm sure it's a pain, but I love the ability just to be able to see it and how it's connecting to other parts. And I think that it's some things just, I'm sure it's not easy, but I'm very appreciative of it.
I mean, that's fine. There's no reason to change it, but we just thought we would take a quick minute to revisit to make sure that
It's a great question. No need to kill time and trees if we're not using it.
Yeah,
I use
like
both
the
and then I go online to magnify some of the drawings.
I don't need a paper copy, Nicole, as long as I can get all the plans online as well. I'm trying to keep my township taxes down from printing.
Oh yeah, and if you have any issues with getting anything electronically, you can always let us know and we can make sure that there's a way for you to get a hold of it.
I always have issues electronically.
Thus, who is late?
Well, I was trying to get on. I was having trouble.
That's all right.
And how do
We're
you
happy
get the
to have-
little raised hand on your theme?
There's a clicker at the bottom.
Sharon, do you see
Bottom
the
where it says reactions?
What does it say?
Reactions.
Reactions. Oh, I had clicked on a couple of things and I had lost the whole screen.
You can even do chats, and then you can chat with other people. You guys can comment on stupid things I say amongst each other.
I think we have the chat turned off.
Oh,
Good move, Doug. Good move, Doug.
all right, we had one motion to adjourn.
Hey, yeah, sorry, we're done.
Who's our second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Have a great evening,
Thank you all.
everyone.
Good
Thank-
night.
thank you for all your time.
Take care,
Oh,
everyone.
and then as a quick reminder, there is the dinner this Friday. Don't forget.
Hey,